Her attorney calls these allegations character assassination. Here to talk more about it, trial attorney and legal analyst Brian Claypool. Brian, thank you for being with us. So, do her attorneys have a legal defense here that this is character assassination, that this is retaliatory? How do you expect them to play forward here?
Hey, Marty, nice to see you again. If I'm representing Gutierrez-Reed, I'm making two arguments. First of all, the lead investigator in this alleged crime was recused from the case, and this guy named Robert Schilling, he recently sent an email to the prosecutors, Marty, and it was inadvertently sent to Gutierrez-Reed's lawyers, that he believed that this entire investigation was compromised and biased. That's earth-shattering for the prosecution, because Gutierrez-Reed's lawyers are going to now use that as evidence and call in the former investigator to say this entire investigation was compromised. That's the first argument. The second argument is pretty simple. Look, you may have an alleged bag of cocaine in my hotel room the night after the interview, but how do you connect that, Marnie, to Gutierrez-Reed having allegedly ingested the cocaine prior to the shooting to make that connection that the cocaine somehow caused her to act erratically and put live ammunition in the gun? I mean, they're missing that causal link.
So might there be a chance these charges get dropped altogether?
Yeah, Barney, I don't think the charges are going to get dropped altogether if this confidential witness comes forward. So there allegedly is a witness from the film crew who has come forward to say that Gutierrez-Reed asked her to transport a bag of cocaine out of her room somewhere else. We don't know where. So the argument by prosecutors is, look, that's evidence tampering, because that would have been used to charge you with another crime. So if that witness testifies and he or she's credible, then that charge sticks, Marnie. But the bigger question, though, is, does that charge of her evidence tampering have anything to do with her culpability for involuntary manslaughter in this case? And I think that is a much more difficult task for prosecutors to prove.
What other missteps have prosecutors made in this case? I mean, in terms of the evidence and what they no longer have access to, including the weapon itself.
Yeah, that's a great question, Marnie. I mean, in my opinion, this investigation has been bungled from the get-go. Remember, there's a guy named, I think it's Dave Halls. Gutierrez-Reed handed him the gun, and then he gave the gun, right, to Alec Baldwin. And they dismissed all charges against him. He pled, I think, to a really minor misdemeanor. I mean, to me, that was a misstep, because now Gutierrez-Reed's going to come in. And by the way, Marnie, if I'm repping her, you know what I'm doing at trial? If this goes to trial, my first subpoena is going to be to Dave Halls. My second subpoena is going to be to Alec Baldwin. Why Baldwin? Because they charged him with a crime. They waited 17 months, and then they dismissed the charges. That sends a message as well to a jury that this investigation was compromised. And they're going to call Baldwin in to testify, Marty, and that's going to create a really interesting dynamic. Is Baldwin going to plead the Fifth Amendment, or is he actually going to testify? Because remember, the prosecutor said, look, if there's new evidence on Baldwin, we're going to bring the charges back. So he's going to have a monster decision. Does he plead the Fifth, which looks bad, and that helps Gutierrez-Reed, or is he going to testify and then possibly set himself up for being recharged?
Wow. Well, Baldwin likes to talk, but in this case, if you were representing him, what would you tell him to do?
Oh, I would absolutely tell him to plead the Fifth Amendment, Marnie. Plead the Fifth and walk away, and then he probably likely never gets recharged. This is a felony hearing today that will be happening for Gutierrez-Reed. What should people expect to happen and result from this hearing? Marty, this is the first step in the criminal process. It's more of a perfunctory kind of process. It's where the formal charges are levied against the defendant. So the judge will read the charges specifically against Gutierrez-Reed, and then she simply says, I plead guilty, not guilty. Hardly anybody ever pleads guilty without a plea deal. She's likely going to plead not guilty, and then it's going to end. And then the next phase is the more important phase. That's the preliminary hearing, which I think is set to take place on August 9th. That is going to be really important, because that's like a mini trial where prosecutors have to put on evidence to prove that there's probable cause, much lower standard than beyond a reasonable doubt, that Gutierrez Reed committed a crime. And that's going to be a great opportunity for her lawyers to get some potential impeachment evidence under oath, because that is testimony under oath.
Right, and understanding fully the evidence they have against her. Brian Claypool, as always, appreciate your time. Nice to see you.
You bet. Thank you, Marnie.